Hi, everybody. This is Chris McCabe again from e-commerce. Chris talking about trends with suspensions, reinstatement strategies, and coming off of a full week in Seattle. Went to the Amazon Accelerate conference for the first time. Wanted to pick apart and mention a few things I identified that would be helpful if you're planning on going to any Amazon conferences in the future, and get into details on what I was doing there. I wasn't just cruising the pavilion, going to the different booths. Of course, I did that to catch up with some service providers, and there were some Amazon booths for ads and for other things, different teams within Amazon, that internal teams that you could meet with in person. So that had some value, but I spent most of my time, and if you've seen me posting on LinkedIn or talking elsewhere about this on our podcast, I spent most of my time in the Seller Café area, meeting with clients, but meeting with Amazonians themselves. It's not the first year they've done Seller Café, and I think they've improved it from what I've heard. I haven't been there before, but I've heard that it's been better in the last, year. They've kind of made strides to do personal sit downs with people, talk through a problem, give you at least 20 minutes. Sometimes they sync back up with you with a case or with an email, or sometimes even a phone call after your appointment with them. It was a good opportunity, not only for me to sit with some clients and Amazonians and have kind of a three-way conversation that you can't have over the phone or via email, of course, but to really kind of sound them out for what they think you're missing in terms of resolving something. What could be provided that would resolve a problem quicker, to get an ASIN to pop up faster, or to appeal for an account reinstatement. I did go with some suspended sellers to Accelerate who were kind of scratching their heads in terms of, why hasn't Amazon lifted the suspension already? Why haven't they reinstated them? And of course, sometimes these conversations are mixed, and it's not clear answers in person more than what you're getting on the phone. I mean, it's not straightforward magic where you just talk to them for 10 minutes and the whole problem is solved, but it gets you closer to a solution, and you're sitting and speaking with somebody who is responsible for looking into it, getting back to you, or at least providing a viable path. So that was kind of part one, day one at Accelerate. That was a good experience. Also, Seller Cafe is a great meeting place away from the noise or the, chaos of the pavilion floor. Same as it would be at another conference, right? When there's lots of booths, lots of networking going on, lots of conversations kind of around you, all happening at the same time, the way it might happen at a networking event. This is much more concentrated, focused. Everyone's there for a reason. The Amazonians are there to talk to sellers. Sometimes you can do an escalation right there. I managed to do a few sitting with executives who were there, who were interested in what was going on. I bumped into a couple of executives that I already knew who were on the policy enforcement or the seller performance side of things, marketplace enforcement. And we were able to walk them into the Seller Cafe area to talk to somebody that we had spoken to about the suspension or about the listing problem. And they were also open to talking with us about abuse cases, somebody who feels like they're attacked by a competitor, and anyone using black hat tactics, which was something I didn't know if they'd be receptive to that, but they were. So we're following up with a couple of cases and having some in-person meetings this week. I've managed to stay in Seattle an additional week because I was able to have meaningful conversations at Accelerate. It made it worthwhile to stay longer and have follow-ups in person. I understand not everyone can spend 2 weeks in Seattle or meet several times with people in a row. But the bottom line is these are worthwhile interactions. It's worth going to the conference if you prepare, if you have lists of questions, if you anticipate some of Amazon's answers. I did talk to a couple sellers in Seller Cafe who were kind of scattered, who didn't really come in with a plan. They just figured they would, work on it when they got there, or they would wait and see, and they would let Amazon reps guide the conversation. That's not the way to do it. Come in with an agenda, make sure you've got 2, 3, 4 questions that you need them to answer for you in order for you to revise an appeal. You might be surprised. They might have new info, which is fine. Maybe they give you something different, which you can use in your next appeal. The objective, of course, is saving yourself all those extra weeks of suspension and stopping yourself from sending in appeals that almost never had a chance. You need to maximize the odds of every single appeal, especially during Q4, which is, what we're sitting in right now. So that was my biggest takeaway from Accelerate. I definitely don't need to do a video where I tell you about all their AI advancements that they were touting, or all the logistics and shipping and supply chain innovations they're coming up with. You can see that type of thing on other videos elsewhere. In terms of resolving problems, troubleshooting urgent issues, there's a lot of darkness out there. The silver lining is I did meet with some executives. They do care about this stuff. They do understand as well that Amazon's communication isn't the greatest. I think they understand that a lot of cases opened or email chains kind of lead nowhere to a brick wall. And, the first step towards progress is understanding that there's a problem that needs to be fixed. We can argue and debate about whether or not their fixes are enough, or whether or not they've got the right specifics and the right feedback from the right sellers. Obviously, I do my best to get, cogent, detailed, specific feedback in front of high-level decision makers, because they clearly need it. Number one, they are soliciting it. Number two, but they want to spend what precious time they have on the right kinds of information. They don't want to hear a lot of anger or emotion or a lot of accusations about how things haven't been going great up until now. They're already aware of that. You can kind of assume safely that they know that already. It's much better to show them that you're not going to take much of their time up, because you do run a tight ship. You do have all your facts straight. You have the timelines. You haven't sent in a bunch of crazy appeals. I think one other thing I heard from Amazon is that sellers are still sending in high quantities of low quality appeals. And I'm one of the people out there that has to try to stop that from happening as much, whether it's through content like this, or public speaking, or, putting together an article about the top mistakes to avoid. I can do another one of those for this Q4. That's not a problem. Sellers have to kind of get to the point where they don't believe that every idea that pops into their heads is a great idea to insert into an appeal, or that lengthy appeals will show your seriousness, because that, unfortunately, is still a current suspension trend. People are still sending in poorly written, poorly communicated ideas in a long document. No one's going to read that. I'm pretty sure the executives I met with aren't interested in reading something of that length, but they delegate to managers who report directly to them. And I think those people aren't going to take the time to read it either. They might read some of it if it's thoughtful and there's useful data in there, factual information in it. But a lot of the appeals that I read are still so scattered and are trying to hedge bets by mentioning everything and then throwing the kitchen sink in too, just to see what sticks or what resonates. That type of length, that kind of document, that's just the wrong way to go. I'll post another video soon about other takeaways, not just from the Accelerate conference, but from my individual meetings or interactions with higher level Amazonians while here in Seattle this month. And any questions on this, certainly feel free to contact us at e-commerce, Chris. Thanks for listening or watching. Good luck.